Hello, welcome to another STEM story. Today we're speaking to Jemma Smith of the Education Hotel. Thank you very much for joining us, Gemma.
Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. I've known Gemma for a few years and seen her do all sorts of very cool things. Well, this is what people say to me, and I always think, really? You just seem to always be doing lots of different things. You must be a very busy woman.
Yeah, I am. I also have a project, so I like to have a goal to get there. That's kind of the thing that I enjoy doing, the whole working out how everything works and starting stuff up. And then once it gets going, I tend to pass it off to someone else. So
I love it. Leadership.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's the interesting bit, isn't it? The new shiny stuff, not the polishing all of the corners afterwards. That's not so much fun.
It can be,
Yeah,
but yeah, I have to kind of gamify that a little bit and make myself do it.
yeah. No, I know that really well. But can you tell our audience about what you currently do?
I do a lot of different things. But I run my own tuition agency. That's the Education Hotel. I run a education consultancy, so I help people get into schools and university. So personal statement, interviews, that kind of stuff, and that's called Top School and Uni. Then I franchised my tuition business. So now I run a franchise as well, and that means that I help other people start their own little education hotels wherever they are in the UK, and I help them to set up and I help them to get going and I give them strategic advice. And then I also work as a strategy specialist. So I help small businesses, often people who are just starting out. So maybe they are a one-man band, is what we call it. So really, it's just you. So you could be like a babysitter, or you could be a dog walker, or you could be a personal trainer, but someone who is wanting to grow their business a bit more and start to get to the point where it is a business and it's not just them. And so I run that, which is a small business to sole income. That's the version. And then finally, actually, because I like to be busy, as you said, um, I am a mother of a 6 month old now, and we are tracking his kind of educational bits on Instagram. So I am running my own kind of early years Instagram at the moment, which is Mama Educates. So that's my fifth and final interesting bit.
That's really sweet. Oh, I find that really interesting actually, because that's a field that I've never really had to pay much attention to because I've never had any children. But
No, it
we,
wasn't anything I had thought about. Well, I thought about it, but I'd never done much in it until obviously he was born. And then I said, well, I want to be able to maybe consider kind of early years stuff.
yeah,
And so I'll do that as well.
I mean, they're always learning. Babies are the best learners, aren't they? So
Very good.
fantastic. Okay, so that's a lot of varied, very varied things keeping you busy. I guess that makes life more interesting. I'm a big fan of that. Do you know what kind of led you into those fields?
Yes. Probably. Um, as I said, I like the problem solving aspect of strategy. And I think that's probably where everything comes from, is that a strategist or a strategy consultant is somebody who looks at a problem and comes up with a solution. And that is really all it is. And I found out about strategy consultancy when I was at university. And it's in itself, it's a lucrative career. I was studying biochemistry. I did it at Oxford, and I decided I didn't want to go down doing my PhD, but I did want to do something that involved problem solving. And so I came across strategy consultancy, and I started doing that straight out of university. And so that's where I realized that the problem solving that I enjoyed probably came into a job or came into a skill set. But that those problem solving bits well, probably way, way back, because before I went to university, I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I loved CSI as a kid.
Oh,
Um, but the bit that I liked was guessing what happened before it happened.
mm,
So you know how when you watch Silent Witness is one of the ones that I like to watch now as well. I like to try and guess who did it right at the start and see if I can work it out and see where the clues are. So that led me to forensic science. Forensic science led me to biochemistry. Biochemistry, I went, I don't want to work in a lab forever. So instead, I'm going to find something that uses that skill set. And that's really where strategy came from.
I love it. That's very similar to mine. I studied forensic science, but never actually worked in forensic science because it is, like I say, it's basically biochemistry and analytical skills. So did various things like that. But it's fascinating. I love it. I think
Exactly.
forensic science programs brought a lot of people into science.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, I spoke to somebody the other day about it because, as I said, I do this education consultancy, and quite often people come to me and they say, "Oh, university, I'm thinking about forensic science, but I have no idea what it's like because it's not something you do in school, but it is something you can see on the TV sometimes. Whether that mimics real life is a bit debatable, um, but it's an interesting thing to bring you into understanding more about the applications of science. So yeah, that's where it all came from. So from forensic science all the way through to strategy and now helping others to set up their own small businesses and grow those businesses as well.
Brilliant. Love it. Very rewarding. Do you get the similar thing that sometimes you have with students where you're it's essentially a similar kind of arc that you're supporting them towards their final study goals, and then you don't necessarily hear anything from them again. You have to kind of phone up and say, by the way,
What
what was the
happened?
outcome?
Yes. Yeah. So often with the university stuff, we find out. So quite lucky with that because people will come up to me and go, "Oh, I got into this university," or, I passed this interview. I did this. I got an offer from here. And with the tuition side, less so because people move on. You take your GCSEs, then the most important thing in the world, and then you're on to A levels. And suddenly they're the most important thing in the world and university and you move on and often forget I suppose that there are people out there who want to know how you did. But yeah, often because we're so involved with people's applications, so we've been there supporting them, they will then tell us if they've got that place.
Yeah. And then is there the same experience with people's businesses that you can see how that's
Yeah.
developed?
Yeah, so it's nice to be able to look back on someone who comes to you without a plan. And often when you start out in business, you don't necessarily have a plan. And I know that sometimes that's a bit of a misconception that I had when I started business was that all business people knew exactly what they were doing. I felt like that should be the thing.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that we don't. Um, and so quite often when people come to me and they say, I have no idea what I'm doing, I've just started this and somehow it's worked. It's nice working out kind of what to do and how to take those next steps.
Is there a single adult in the world that feels like they are confident in what they're doing? They know what they're doing.
And having become a mother, 6 months ago, I always thought that parents knew what they were doing. And
No.
that's so not true. We've got things that obviously you like, your values, the things you believe in.
Hmm.
But in terms of the day to day, there's a lot of Googling.
Yes. Oh, thank goodness for Google. Yeah. I don't know how my parents kept us all alive. They had no internet. How did that happen? We've done well. So this kind of down the same vein, I think we're maybe hopefully not shattering too many very solid illusions that students might have that all of the adults in their world know exactly what they're doing and just had a solid plan that they're following. But are there any things that kind of didn't really go to plan for you down that path?
Absolutely. There's loads. A notable one, which was probably about a year or so into the education hotel. Now, the education hotel is probably my biggest business. It's a multi six-figure business. It has, I think, about 70 odd tutors. We're growing. I'd say we're I'd say we're still small, but some people would say we're bigger. Um, but probably in a couple of years into that, COVID hit. I
Mm.
was I was doing stuff in the education hotel, but also got a lot more time. And I decided that I was going to fill that time with subscription boxes.
Oh.
Like, yes, this is the business that I think I'm going to start up. I've got all the resources, so that will be fine. And I will do some 11 plus subscription boxes. I very quickly realized that I'm not the person who is good at that. Because I'm in terms of qualities, I think I'm good at teaching and I'm good at working out where to go next. I'm good at the strategy side. What I'm not so great at, unless I'm teaching, is the detail parts. And that required lots of detail and lots of focus and not doing what I ended up doing, which was staying up till 2 in the morning the night before they were all due to be posted, sitting in my living room with just piles of stuff around me trying to work out how to fit it in the box. Um, it's not the business for me. And so that was definitely a big veer because again, I'd started it up, I'd taken all the pictures, done a website, done all those bits, and then went, actually, no, this is not. But I think I consider it as a learning because now when I see things that I want to do, I consider whether they are worth doing,
Yeah.
or whether I'm just doing it because I think it might be fun or because I think I should do it is another thing. And often I think, especially when we're at school, we're told often what we should be doing. Um, but when you leave and when you leave school or university, you don't really get told anymore what you should be doing. Um, and so it is up to you to try and work it out. And that was an example of me doing what I thought I should be doing, but actually I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So I think yes, absolutely there are mistakes. There are many of them that I've made, but that's probably a big learning one.
That sounds really stressful. Can't imagine being sitting there. Why have
Yeah.
I done this?
It was very stressful. And in the end I had to contact all the people who had the boxes and basically say, look, we're not going to continue it because it's just not the right fit. And that's okay. It's okay because you learned something from it and have taken that forward. And it's been able to help me when I consult with other businesses when they're saying, oh, this is the thing we want to do. I say, okay, right, let's go through some scenario questions and make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah. That's a really interesting experience to have though, to have known like what that feels like. Because I think a lot of the times when we are doing the right thing, but especially very early on the path, it feels really difficult and overwhelming and uncomfortable. But there's a difference when you have that challenge, but you know it's what you want to do, and when it's really difficult and you've not got interest enough to stick at it.
Yeah, exactly. I think everything feels tough at the start because it's not ideal. Nothing's working on the ideal plan. My ideal plan when I started the education hotel was to be able to not do a lot of tutoring. That was the whole point. And that is what I do now. But it's taken me 5 years to get there. But I knew that there was an end goal. With the subscription box, I was following what I thought, honestly, what social media told me I should be doing at the time, or what people around me told me I should be doing. And that wasn't what I should be doing.
Yeah. People are great for kind of collecting ideas, but they need to go through your own filter, don't they?
That one happened.
Yeah. I get lots of that and lots of like there's quite I think outdated attitudes that you just have to it's very important to have yourself a salary, and once you've got that you cling on to it, and that's I've had that message from me a lot when I've kind of made decisions to do things independently or be self-employed, that it's like, but you're throwing away this and you've been doing that for such a long. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose I had a similar thing when I left university,
Yeah.
in that it may well be different now, but when I was there, Oxford, Cambridge, if you did science, the big thing you would go and do is PhD.
Yeah.
And there were four girls in my year, and three of them did PhDs, and I was the odd one out. And it was like, you shouldn't be doing that. Why are you stepping away from sciences and going and doing strategy consultancy, but also why are you stepping away from this very well trodden path? And sometimes you have to reflect and think, "Yeah, the reason I'm doing it is that individually for me it doesn't work. And it might not be the thing that you would see as the next step, but it's the thing that I'm confident to do."
Yeah, that's very difficult to kind of not take on other people's fears when you're making your own decisions. I love it. Don't think I'd be up for doing a PhD. It looks like a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah. I still keep in contact with the three girls that did them, and only one of them is still plowing along, and she's about to have her own lab. So
Wow.
she's got really far with that, but the other two stopped after PhD.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of make or break moment, is it? Okay. So if somebody was interested in kind of going down the strategy consultancy route, what kind of tips would you give them? Is there like a specific um like personality trait that would fit it really well, or things that they should um head like direct towards or away from?
It's really good for people who like solving problems,
Yeah.
and also people who I suppose like looking at data and seeing patterns.
Mm.
Um, because often, especially at the junior levels, you're given a load of data and then asked to you're either collecting that data or you're looking at that data and pulling out some either unusual bits or some trends. And it's a lot of research stuff. So it's quite similar to the sciences in that you're doing the research, you're coming up with a hypothesis. You might then be hitting the phones and phoning people, my least favorite part of the job, but is something you get used to very quickly. And then you're confirming, is that something that is true? Um, and then there's a bit of PowerPoint design, and then usually as you get more senior, you stick into the presentation side. So junior side is more analytical. And as you get more senior, it's more about talking to the clients and finding out what they need, and then doing those final presentations and presenting the findings.
Mm.
Um, so I suppose, yeah, it's good for people who want to put their research skills into a different environment,
Yeah.
um, people who enjoy looking at and separating data, people who quite like Excel. So yeah, Excel spreadsheets they can be fun. Um, and yeah, and I suppose then the reason that I got into it was I like the big picture stuff,
Yeah.
which is, we're not making money here. How do we do that? Or we're looking at a new country to move into. What do we need to be aware of? But a lot of it, when you are more junior, is about looking at the data and backing that up. And I think now that I sit not so much in the junior section, but I do individual consulting with businesses for strategy. I'm really glad that I went through the junior bit, because I do a lot of my stuff that's data driven, and I don't just go on feel now. I do actually make sure that the research is there. So yeah, so I think it could be a really interesting career. The standard route is to go into one of the big strategy consultancy companies. So most people have heard of Bain or BCG or McKinsey. I went into a smaller strategy house when I started. But I quite quickly left because I didn't like living in London. But I managed to take a lot of the skills that I'd learned in that first year. And now that I have worked in a lot of different businesses, mostly educational, but mostly kind of service-based businesses, I'm now able to put those skills into action. So I also think in terms of tips, you don't have to have a really linear path to to go into it. It's not something where you have to have started at this level and worked your way up. You can take all of the experience that you've got from other areas and put it into what you're consulting on.
Mm. Sounds really interesting. This keeps happening to me when I hear about people's careers. I'm like, that sounds so cool. No, Georgina, stay where you are.
Elaine.
Yeah. Well, no, this is like it kind of flagged for me as well some of the things I learned working in a pharmaceutical company for I was there for 14 years. So I'd see people go kind of up paths and then people that went on sideways back and forth paths, and actually realizing that the attitude I had when I joined was that you would be constantly working upwards, but there would come a point where I was like, I don't actually like the next level up. I prefer it down here. I'd like to stay here.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think often when we're at school, we are taught that you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. So you take your GCSEs, you go on to your A levels or IB, then you go to university. That path isn't fixed. It doesn't need to be. I know people who've gone back and taken GCSEs years and years later because they wanted to or because they needed to. Um, and I think it becomes a lot clearer if you're not in a corporate structure. I wasn't in a corporate structure for very long. I worked in quite small companies, I worked strategy, and then I founded my own business. So I've not followed that traditional ladder. But there are many people who will go all the way through and that's what they do. But I wish someone had told me when I was a student that it's fine to zigzag your way across. Because I think like you, when I started my first job as a strategy consultant, I thought, right, okay, junior analyst, then you go up to analyst, then you move up, then you move up, then you move up. But sometimes that doesn't suit a person, and it you can end up with a better work-life balance, a better earning potential sometimes as well through not going along that path.
Definitely. Yeah. There was people that I worked with that were they wanted to stay in the lab, and as soon as you get promoted, you get taken out of the lab. But those people became absolute go-to experts even outside of the country. And the one thing that they did, just pretty brilliant if that's the sort of thing that you love. But I think I'd go mad if I did the same thing every day.
Yeah, yeah. My, as you can tell from what I do, I don't like doing the same thing. But but there are some points where you do have to do the same issue. But yeah, I tend to outsource or automate it or get someone else to do it. Because yeah, I like the variety.
Yeah. It sounds like a really interesting job, but yeah, I think only because you have all of that experience. If I dropped myself right in the middle of that, I would very quickly have a meltdown. Not for me. Um, do you like thinking back to when you were at school? Do you remember what were your favorite subjects to learn at school?
Chemistry.
Yeah,
Thanks. Chemistry. Yeah, because I was good at sciences.
yeah.
Because in GCSE, I was very good at kind of memorizing the answers and having the definitions there, and I quite like getting the right answer. And so for me, maths and sciences were really the things I was good at. But then beyond that, I really loved chemistry because I really liked, well, I like the experiments. That's a standard, that's a given, I think.
Mhm.
But I also like the fact that a bit like consulting, you see the big picture and then you can zoom right in and you can see all the little things that are happening. And then you can start to see how does that affect the big picture? And that's why, yeah, I mean, that's why I did biochemistry. That's why I qualified as a chemistry teacher. All of it, all of that excitement over chemistry literally comes from being able to go, okay, so I know the structure of this atom. How does that then extrapolate into its properties? Or how does that, why does this technique appear here and here and here? So yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy that problem solving, that big picture, being able to zoom in and zoom out. And I feel like chemistry really does that well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just love science in general for that, just to understand the things that are working around you.
Yeah.
It's endless fascination for me, but that's me being jack of all trades, master of none. I know a little bit about everything. That keeps me amused. Did you ever have a tutor when you were at school?
I did. Yes.
Yeah.
So unknown to me, until I got to university, actually, I'm dyslexic. And I didn't realize it, but I knew I wasn't very good at English.
Oh,
So, an English tutor. Um, his name is Peter. Great guy. I've actually been back to see him a couple of times,
oh,
even with my partner. And we started in English, but then we moved to Latin and we did a bit of French and we did some piano in between as well. He was
oh.
one of those tutors that was just really good at picking things up. And he helped me with my Oxbridge interview as well. Even though completely the opposite. So he actually lectured at Cambridge and in Irish literature. That was his area. Couldn't get further from biochemistry. But it was he had a way of working things out that was very interesting to me. So he would pick like a problem in the newspaper, and then we'd go through ways that we could solve it or ways that we could work it out. And with the English, again, it was about finding a way that worked for me because I was bad at writing essays. I'm still not great. But unknown to him and unknown to me, that was part of my dyslexia, was not being able to put all of these thoughts in order. And it still happens now. I think it's probably why I'm a good strategist, because I can see all the things at the same time. He doesn't do very well in essay writing. So yes, I did. Peter was great. And I am really thankful to him because he didn't just sit down and go, right, we're going to just write essays. He properly engaged and bought loads of different things in and newspapers, and I really enjoyed going to see him because there was always something new and something like a different perspective.
He sounds brilliant. I love that. I wouldn't even have thought of that. Let's look at the newspaper and solve issues in there. That's a
Yeah,
brilliant idea.
we
And
looked at
obviously,
years and years ago. So I mean, I think it's back in like 2018, 2017. No, it must be earlier than I don't know when that was. Before I went to university, we were looking at water running out in the world. And so
oh,
that was one of the things that we picked up. Like, what could you do? What could you do if we're running out of water in the world? And he wasn't an expert. He's not a scientist. He's an English teacher, but he could sit there and read through the problems and ask me them. And I think that really helped when I went to go to my Oxford interview. Neither of my parents went to university even, so I had no idea what was coming up. But he'd already been kind of asking those big picture questions, and so that really helped me.
yeah, that's brilliant. That is the origins of your strategy consultant brain.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It really is. And of my love of tutoring.
Yeah.
That he was quite pivotal for me.
Yeah, I think this is why I love my job. I mean, it sounds kind of big-headed potentially if you're hearing this from the outside and have never experienced it, but you really have a massive impact in people's lives at a really important time in their life. Like you can either make it a really bad experience or a really powerful experience. So yeah.
I had a student who I helped with GCSEs when she was 16. And then she went on to do her A levels, and then she took a gap year, and she got into Cambridge. And she was when I knew her, I actually knew her from much younger because I taught her older brothers as well. But during her GCSEs, she was a firecracker. Um, you almost go the wrong way. Um, and we managed to sort it out, me, her, and her mum. And we all sat down, and we all sat down in front of literally at the kitchen table and worked out a way for her to work. And when she got into Cambridge, she messaged me and she said, "Thank you so much because you told me that I was cleverer than my brothers." Because it was the one thing that she never believed.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, she was like, I wouldn't have applied to Cambridge unless it was for you. So I was really chuffed when that message came through. So
Well, that's lovely.
yeah, make a big difference. You really do.
Before I start weeping, I'm going to ask you if people wanted to get in touch with you and ask about your services and have some strategy consulting, where can they find you?
So I run a Facebook group which is called Small Business to Sole Income.
Okay.
Um, I am searchable as Jemma Zoe Smith. I'm on Instagram as Mama Educates, which is the kind of homeschooling bit that I'm doing. And then obviously I run the Education Hotel. So if you type the Education Hotel in anywhere, then eventually you will reach me, because it is typically the most well found. And then for the education consultancy, it's Top School and Uni.
Perfect. I'll stick some links in wherever people are watching this as well. They can have a look. Thank you very much. That's really interesting. I mean, obviously, I've known you a while, but I've learned many things. You've had a very interesting life.
Well, I think I like to think that I've reached where I want to be, but I've gone a very unconventional route.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone, if students are listening to it, that is probably my overarching message is that you don't have to follow that traditional path. You can get to where you want to go just using different options.
Oh, lovely message. Thank you very much, Gemma. Lovely chatting to you today. How are you doing? We'll speak to you very soon. Thank you. All right. Hi, I'm your podcast host, Georgina Green, and the founder of Green Tutors STEM Specialist Tuition Company. We've been supporting students with their GCSE and A-level maths, science, and STEM subject studies since 2011, and our team all work and have a passion for STEM professions such as engineering and chemical synthesis and medicines and all sorts of fantastic things in the world of STEM beyond the curriculum, which is what we bring into our lessons to make them more exciting, and the reason I wanted to share this podcast with you all. Alongside that, we've launched the STEM Educators Academy, where other STEM professionals and STEM education enthusiasts can come and learn about how to grow their STEM education practices together. If you're interested in any of the support that we offer, get in touch at greentutors.uk and you can access some of the free resources on there as well. This podcast would not exist without the sponsorship of STEMazing. I'm very grateful to STEMazing, not only for sponsoring our podcast, but for the brilliant work that they're doing, fostering inspiration and inclusion in STEM. I recommend having a look at their website, stemazing.co.uk, which is what you can see right now, to see a bit more about the work that they do. Alongside the award-winning Inspiration Academy, bringing events into primary schools and inspiring young people to see their future in STEM, because you can't be what you can't see. There's a fantastic membership, which I'm a part of, for women in STEM to do more of this, fostering inspiration and inclusion in STEM, with monthly content shared on empowerment, inspiration, and community. That will help you to be a better role model and mentor to people in STEM. And finally, there's a brilliant library here of role models in STEM that you can go and have a look at and hear more about their STEM stories. Here's a shout out for our sponsor, Navigated Tutor. If you haven't seen this, I recommend having a look. If you're in education, the Navigated Tutor platform gives access to a quarterly webinar and magazine and training resources. The first one I've already read and attended, and in minutes learned lots that's going to make a massive impact on the way that I support my students. This is brought to you by Arthur Moore, who is not only a fantastic tutor but also the host of the Tea and Teaching podcast and Tutoring Tips podcast, two of my most listened podcasts. So I recommend that you go and check those out if you're working in education at all, and sign yourself up to the Navigated Tutor platform for some fantastic CPD. You can get access to this at mooreedu.thinkific.com. That's mooreedu.thinkific.com.